All right, so for the second time in 3 seasons, the Philadelphia Eagles will be taking on the Kansas City Chiefs in the Super Bowl. The Kansas City Chiefs head towards history as they could potentially become the first ever NFL team to three-peat, while the Philadelphia Eagles are looking to avenge their loss in the Super Bowl to the Chiefs just 2 years ago. Listen, we could talk about the refs and what people were saying about the Eagles and yada yada, but in my estimation, there is no doubt these are the two best teams in football, and this Super Bowl matchup, it's the one that was correct. It is the one that was meant to happen. It was the one that was deserved. There is not two more deserving teams that could possibly be playing each other in this Super Bowl, in my opinion. Now, let's break down these games, starting with the Kansas City Chiefs 32-29 victory over the Buffalo Bills. Patrick Mahomes, now with his 17th playoff win, is second all-time in NFL history, only behind Tom Brady, who has 35 of them. Thanks. So some work to do to catch the GOAT, but man, is Pat Mahomes tracking at this point in time. And we talked a lot about the refs, and I do think that there is some refereeing that is beneficial to the Chiefs. I'm not going to dismiss that. They have the face of the league in Patrick Mahomes, and they are home field a lot of the time. However, I think in this game, the story of the game was Patrick Mahomes in the big spot and what he does with his legs. Because unlike Josh Allen, his opponent, Jalen Hurts, his Super Bowl opponent, Lamar Jackson, whatever rushing quarterback you want to name, Jaden Daniels, Patrick Mahomes does not run the ball frequently. But in the big spots of the big games, Patrick Mahomes gets it done on the ground with his legs. He got it down on the ground with his legs 3 big times in this game. That early 4th and 1 on their own 39, designed run to Mahomes. The first rushing touchdown he had, not a designed run, but got in the end zone. And the second rushing touchdown Mahomes had was a QB run from the jump. Head down, fought, got in the end zone. And Mahomes, this game personifies why people say that this is the most talented guy that they've seen. Because while he has the escapability and can make crazy throws on the run, while he can, has a cannon of an arm, he also does this on the ground in every big spot. The old, everybody talks about it. Mahomes, if he needs 9 yards, he gets 10. If he needs 15 yards, he gets 16. And it just seems that the guy chasing him is just too slow. Patrick Mahomes in this game was fantastic. There's no doubt about it. The Kansas City Chiefs in this game proved why they're championship caliber again. In the big spot, you can't really doubt Mahomes, Reed, Kelsey, Spagnuolo. And for the Bills, man, it's tough. There's a lot of little things you could point to. The 4th and 1, was it a first down? Was it not a first down? Should James Cook have been more involved? Could Dalton Kincaid have made that catch? There's a lot of little things. Ultimately, at the end of the day, the Kansas City Chiefs are just a tick better. And this Buffalo Bills team is good, but this Kansas City Chiefs team is better. And that's just as simply as you could put it. To me, this is one of those losses where I don't point to a single individual and say, that was the problem. Losing Christian Benford, that really sucked. Having Taylor Rapp also out in the secondary, that really sucked. Cluster injuries are killers in the playoffs. And maybe it's because the Chiefs were just a little bit healthier. But maybe it's because Patrick Mahomes is just that much better. And Andy Reid is just that much better. Let's look at the stats here. So, like I mentioned, Kansas City gets the win. Mahomes 18-26 for 245, a touchdown, a 111 passer rating, but also 11 for 43 on the ground for 2 touchdowns. So 3 total touchdowns on the day for Patrick Mahomes. The guy was outstanding. I thought Xavier Worthy really showed that he's the wide receiver 1 of this team and may even be the number 1 target some games over Travis Kelce. And next year with Rice and Worthy, the team is in good hands with weapons for Mahomes for sure. Kareem Hunt had a really solid day. Pacheco had the big reception. Samaje Perine, the 17-yard catch to close out the game. This was a real team victory for the Chiefs, and Mahomes led the way, but there's a lot of different guys you could pinpoint and say, wow, he really made an impact. For Buffalo, I thought James Cook was or could be the equalizer. 13 of 85 for 2 touchdowns. Ultimately, what this game came down to was on 4th down, Steve Spagnuolo did it again. That blitz, disguised blitz from the corner, untouched. And we've seen that how many times in this playoff run from Kansas City. Gets to Josh Allen. Allen still somehow makes an almost impossible throw. Kincaid not quite able to get back to the ball. And ultimately, the Bills lose the game. Patrick Mahomes was freaking fantastic. You look at the stats in this game, I got to point something out. The first game of these NFL playoffs where the team that had a worse turnover differential won the game. Even when you out-execute Kansas City, they could still beat you. Total yards, Buffalo had more. Passing yards were right there. Rushing, Buffalo. I mean, you talk about as neck and neck as you could be for two teams. 374 to 368 in terms of yardage. The penalties, 6-5. Obviously, Buffalo had a little bit more yardage, but the turnover 0-1. The time of possession, just 30 seconds apart. A 3-score game. These two teams continue to play each other neck and neck. 4-4 against each other all the time. But Patrick Mahomes is 4-0 against Josh Allen in the playoffs now. And while it may sting, we have to acknowledge Pat is just that little bit better. And the Chiefs are just that little bit better. And it's hard to bet against them, against anybody at this point, but certainly against the Buffalo Bills. My hat goes off to them. Buffalo had a great season. You kind of just run it back. I don't know what much change you could do. Joe Brady's coming back, so that's really good for them. But ultimately, for the 3rd straight year, Chiefs are back in a Super Bowl. And, they could become the first team in NFL history to three-peat. They have a really, really, really strong chance of doing so. And their opponent is set to be the Philadelphia Eagles, who picked up a 55-23 victory over the Washington Commanders. I kind of hinted at this in the preview video that I thought that the Eagles had the potential that if they out-executed Washington, this game could get ugly. Now, I haven't seen Washington turn the ball over like the clip that they did in this game, so I wasn't expecting things to be, so far sour for Washington in terms of this big gap. But ultimately, at the end of the day, the Philadelphia Eagles are a more talented roster, and they showed that today. They outmuscled, they out-talented, they were just flatly better than the Commanders. And the Commanders went on a very nice Cinderella run, and they have such a bright future with Jaden Daniels. The guy's already definitively a top 10 quarterback in the league. And, the offensive line around him, the defense, the receiving core, it wasn't anything set for a Super Bowl roster. They weren't expecting to be here this year. If I had told you at the beginning of the season the Commanders would be in the NFC Championship, every Washington Commanders fan would sign up for that. This was a great year. But ultimately, they were not on the level of the Philadelphia Eagles. And I've said it repeatedly throughout these playoffs. I'll stand on the soapbox again after today because in some ways I was proven correct. Jalen Hurts. We have to start respecting this guy. He is a no doubt top 10 quarterback. Flatly, Nick Sirianni said it. He's a fucking winner. His 2nd Super Bowl in 3 years. The only guy with more, Patrick Mahomes. His 2nd 14-win season in 3 years. The only other guys to do that since 2000, Patrick Mahomes and Tom Brady. If you view them as winners, what Jalen Hurts is doing is a winner. In his first 4 seasons as a starter, he's now gone to the Super Bowl in 2 of them. He's now had 14-win seasons in 2 of them. It may not always be the way that you like it to fill the stat sheet, but he showed you today that when he needs to pass the ball and when that is the most effective method, he can go out there and execute in a win. And that's flatly what he did. Jalen Hurts is a winner. And Jalen Hurts, to me, cemented himself as a no doubt clear-cut top 10, top 8 quarterback in football. And I'll tell you what, if in 2 weeks' time, we see the Super Bowl we saw 2 years ago, where Jalen Hurts and Patrick Mahomes were trading blows, and this time Jalen Hurts comes out on top, there's going to need to be some uncomfortable conversations to be had for some of you. Let's talk about the stats here. So obviously, Jalen, 20 of 28, 246 yards, a 110 passer rating, 4 total touchdowns. What can you say? The guy's a weapon. And for people who watch the Bills game, that tush-push isn't automatic. But Jalen Hurts sure makes it look that way. And he's done it now with 2 centers. The only common denominator is the quarterback who squats 600 pounds. Saquon Barkley, again, big spot, big playoff game. What did he do? Showed up 15 for 118 and 3 touchdowns. That monster touchdown that he had on the very first offensive play of scrimmage for the Philadelphia Eagles set the damn tone in this game. A.J. Brown got going, 6 for 96 and a touchdown. I mean, the team scored 55 points in a conference championship game. They broke the record for most rushing touchdowns in a conference championship game with 7. This is the most talented roster in the NFL. There is not a doubt about it in my mind. Do they have the best quarterback? No, that's Kansas City. Do they have the best coach? No, that's Kansas City. And we're about to see how that stacks up. And we'll talk about that as these next 2 weeks transpire. But from top to bottom, it is hard, and I dare say almost impossible, to deny that on a full 53-man front, Philadelphia isn't the most talented roster. They have a top 10 quarterback. They have a top 1 wide receiver. They have a top 3 receiving room. They have a top 3 offensive line. And statistically, they have the best defense in the NFL. This is a complete team. They say in the playoffs you lose based on your weaknesses. And if Jalen Hurts is the weak link, as a top 10 player, I'll take it. Top 10 player at his position. And again, we could sit here and talk about it all night. From top to bottom. Zach Bond, all-pro linebacker, brought in on this team. Anybody could have had him. Howie Roseman and Vic Fangio wanted him. 12 tackles, a tackle for loss, a forced fumble, a fumble recovery, all-pro season. Orion Burks, next man up. Nakobe Dean goes down 2 weeks ago. 9 tackles, a sack, a tackle for loss. Was huge in this game. Forced a fumble on Austin Eckler. Cooper DeJean, Quinyon Mitchell, rookie cornerback picks. Absolutely outstanding. Jordan Davis had a big game. Darius Slay's still out there. Nolan Smith Jr. with a sack. Jalen Carter. The team is fucking stacked. And they continue to show that week after week. Yet for some reason, the national media, and maybe some of you watching, like to doubt Jalen Hurts and say he will be the downfall of this team. I'm not saying he's perfect. I'm not saying he's in the tier with Mahomes and Allen. But he's in the tier with Jaden Daniels. He's in the tier with Justin Herbert. He's in that tier with CJ Stroud. And he goes and wins a bowl. We might have to have a conversation about Jalen Hurts versus Joe Burrow. That might be uncomfortable for some of y'all, but it's the truth. The Philadelphia Eagles were dominant today and showed why I believe them to be the most talented roster in football. Does that win out against a team who has perhaps the best quarterback, head coach, defensive coordinator, and a lot of talent around them? Time will tell. New Orleans is in 2 weeks. For the Commanders, Zach Ertz, hell of an effort. Jaden Daniels, hell of an effort. But at the end of the day, like a lot of games, this came down to turnovers. 4 for the Commanders, 0 for the Eagles. Turnovers will kill you in the playoffs. And exactly what Washington did to Detroit last week, Philly did to them this week and then some. It's just that simple. Philly had enough offensive talent like Detroit, and they didn't make the mistakes. And this is where they made Washington pay. Because not only did they execute, but they executed at the highest possible level that they could have. And now they find themselves going to the Super Bowl with a date with the Kansas City Chiefs. We got a lot of time to talk about that, but for now, Drop your reactions to these conference championship games in the comment section down below. If you're new to the channel and you love the NFL, be sure to hit that subscribe button. Got a ton of Super Bowl content coming for you guys, as well as I got a ton of offseason content, mock drafts, free agency, tier rankings of each position, you name it, we got it. Hit that sub button. I'll catch you guys next time. Peace.